Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another early impression video. And today it's going to be on a Xerjoff, my favorite brand. I'm just kidding. It's not my favorite brand. It's actually a brand that I really don't like. I think a lot of their stuff is synthetic and it's not worth the overpriced price tag that they charge, that kind of stuff. But I have to give credit where credit is due, okay? And so I'm always fair. And, you know, I'm doing a lot of these early impressions because obviously I could review any of these that I haven't done full reviews on. You know, I've got something like 500 plus fragrances that I could do reviews on that I haven't done full reviews on. I've only done a few small, very small amount of full reviews, if you will. And the reason is I can do them anytime. If I wanted to do one on, you know, Interlude Man, Journeyman, one of the, you know, Rojas that I haven't done, you know, you name it. I could grab a bottle and talk about it. And I will be doing that more. But when you have these tiny little samples, you know, and this is it. I'm not going to buy a bottle of this. And so I want to at least put my thoughts out there in the YouTube fragcom, if you will. And hopefully they help somebody. And as you know, I'm not sponsored, of course. My thoughts and opinions are my own. And this is how I truly feel. And, you know, obviously as you progress in your, journey and your nose you put your nose on more fragrances and you learn more about how the fragrance world works and what's out there, your thoughts change. Now, before we go into my thoughts on Zerjoff Gao, by the way, that's the fragrance we're going to be talking about, Zerjoff Gao, G-A-O. This was sent to me, I have to say thank you, because this was sent to me by D.L. Qualia, who you'll see come and go on my channel. He kind of pops in and pops out from time to time, but he mentioned that I said I don't like many Xerjoffs, and he said, have you smelled this one? Because this is supposedly the one that has that real animalic oud smell to it. And he said, you have to try this. I think this is the one that you'll like because it's not like the others. So we're going to do an early impression on this and my thoughts. As you can see, I've worn it multiple times. I had a problem with this because the sprayer doesn't work. So I had to kind of rip the sprayer off and dump some on me and then put it back and rip it off again. But today we've got it on the test strip. I've worn it on skin multiple times. I've got it on the test strip today. My scent of the day, by the way, is an oud fragrance from Francis Kurkdjian called Oud from 2012. And, you know, oud is kind of like a interpretation of Francis Kurkdjian's version of a rose oud, if you will. It's very, very Western style. You know, it doesn't have much of that animalic funk. If you like fragrances like, you know, if you like fragrances like Tom Ford's Oud Wood, you'll probably like something like Francis Kurkdjian's take on oud. Lots of saffron, lots of cedar. And so if you like the way that Creed does Royal Oud, you'll probably like MFK's oud. If there is real oud in here, which I don't know if there is, it says Laotian oud. I don't know if they use real oud or if they just use a drop or what, you know, if it's synthetic, I don't know. If the brand says it's real, it's real. Doesn't smell like real oud to me though. It smells like, you know, they've used just tons of that synthetic molecule. And we'll talk about that in the Xerjoff as well. But before we do, I've got a little bit of a surprise unboxing. Now, this is going to be like an unboxing week because I got stuff coming every day almost, I think. There's new stuff coming in. I went a little crazy at the end of July, early August. And so we're going to do an unboxing of a vintage perfume this time. A discontinued vintage perfume. I've been eyeballing this for a while. The price was so cheap, I just said, you know what? I have to go ahead and pull the trigger because with these vintage fragrances, you just never know how long they're going to last. So here's the fragrance, and it's Andy Warhol Pour Homme. Now this is before they did the Andy Warhol with Bond Number 9. I would love that fragrance, but unfortunately, this was like $12 or something I paid for this. and it's a vintage discontinued fragrance with the short ingredient list. All right, so you don't always find these kind of deals, so I figured, what the heck, you know, 12 bucks, we'll give it a shot. If it sucks, you're not really out anything. So as you can see, my fragrance tastes go all over the place. I bought one of the very expensive Roses recently at a fantastic price. And now I'm buying a $12 fragrance. So I go all over the place. I'm not a snob. I don't look down on fragrances because of the price tag. I understand that there are some cheap, you know, fragrances as far as dollars go that are fantastic. So let's unbox this bad boy, shall we? And then we'll get into the early impression of Zerjoff Gao. So apparently what ended up happening is this fragrance is released by a company or a distributor called COF or Coffin Lux, which is also COFCI, I believe. And Coffin Lux made the Salvador Dali fragrances. So they made, like for example, they're the distributor that did Dali Pour Homme. And with the lips, beautiful bottle. I love this. This is my favorite Dali fragrance by far, and actually maybe one of my favorite Thierry Wasser fragrances ever. I think this is an absolute masterpiece. And if you look on the bottom, you'll see it says manufactured by COFCI right there. And that's the same company that did this. All right, so there's the inside of the box, Andy Warhol's art, and here's the bottle. There you have it. So I heard about this on the Scented Devils stream on Instagram, and 100 ml, I got this for $12. Discontinued short ingredient list, and this is supposedly kind of like a take on a green, fresh, almost like a beach fragrance, if you will. Synthetic green, basil tarragon with jasmine, cardamom, and mock orange, moss, musk, sandalwood, and cedar. He said if you like stuff like Jill Sanders' Sun, which I don't own, you can check this one out. And so I figured for that price, what the heck? I mean, you know, these discontinued fragrances, sometimes they are around and then you check again and they're just completely gone. So even though they're stock right now, I figured I better grab a bottle. And it was just so cheap, I couldn't say no. So I'm excited to check this one out. I think this COFCI or Coffin Lux, they do good fragrances for the price. They were considered to be like a cheaper, you know, creator back in the day, but now that everything has changed, you know, those cheaper vintages that use the higher quality materials compared to nowadays with the synthetics, they're worth checking out. So there you go. There's a quick unboxing of Andy Warhol. Cool bottle too. You know, they don't make bottles like this anymore. The dollar signs are like raised over the glass. I don't know if you can see it. Just the mold of creating a bottle like this is very expensive. That's why so many niche brands nowadays just use stock bottles. So if you look at some of the niche brands, like, for example, here's My from Bagway. Bagway's My, and it's just a standard 50 ml. It's the exact same bottle that many other brands use. They just put their own little, you know, this is actually engraved, but some of them put a sticker on there. You know, they make their own cap. His is rubber, which I don't really care for. But that's it. That's the stock bottle nowadays that so many brands use because it's so expensive to do your own bottle. And here you go, a $12 fragrance that you can find on eBay in its own nice little bottle. So I just think that's cool. So anyways, maybe one day I can find the Bond No. 9 fragrance that Andy Warhol did. So apparently they had to discontinue this because they signed an exclusive deal with Bond No. 9, and then those Bond No. 9s, of course, now are discontinued. So anyways, we'll get into that. We'll do early impressions, and I'll talk about it one day, some other time, but there you have it, Andy Warhol's Pour Homme. Okay, so, and that came out in the late 90s, by the way, 1999, I think that came out. All right, so let's talk about why we're here. Let's talk about Zerjoff Gao. Now, if you've watched some of my other videos on Xerjoff as a brand, okay, go watch my Symphonium first impression if you want to joke, if you want to laugh a little bit. I think that's one of the worst fragrances I've ever smelled in my life. They sell it for $400. It smells like one of those cheap, orange chocolates that you buy and break it open and it opens up into like orange slices. Synthetic, sweet, disgusting. I mean, I hated that fragrance and I bashed it on my review. I said it was a $10 fragrance in a $400 bottle, and that's the way it felt to me. That's the way a lot of Xerjoffs feel to me. I do really like Xerjoff Oud. That's my favorite. But many of the Xerjoffs that I've tried just didn't do it for me, okay? Not impressed. Zerjoff Gao, when I first smelled it, I said, my very first thought was they're using real oud in this, okay? And there's a story that I want to tell you about this quote-unquote real oud. It's actually one of the reasons I wanted to do this early impression today is it's a topic that came up with Russian Adam and of Arij Ladore. So Russian Adam, as you know, is the founder and perfumer, and he's an oud distiller. He has a couple different companies. One of them is called Feel Oud. I'm just showing you a bottle of what a Russian Adam fragrance looks like. For those of you who aren't familiar, this one doesn't have oud in it, but I have one that actually does have oud in it coming very soon. So you'll see an unboxing on that within the next week or so. And of course, he sent me samples. I did early impressions, and I've got to know the note of oud much better thanks to him. You know, he sent me some of his samples, like Chinese oud, for example, and all kind of different stuff. He sent me the real oud oil, so I got to smell lots of oud. And me and him were talking the other day, and he's, really big into the oud community, right? That's his thing. He's a distiller. It's very important to him. And he takes his passion of distilling oud very seriously. And he said, Ramsey, we were texting back and forth on WhatsApp, and he left me a voice message saying he's a little bit concerned, a little bit worried that these brands are taking advantage of now the fact that some of these oud names are becoming more and more popular. Like, for example, Kinam Oud, which he sent me. I don't know if I'll be able to find it. Let's see if I can find it real quick. But he sent me here you go. Kinam by Russian Adam, okay? So he sent me this oud, which is one of the most popular ouds right now in it's kind of the talk of the oud community, if you will. And Kinam Oud is starting to become more mainstream. So people who don't know what oud is or don't know the real intricacies of the oud trade, they hear Kinam and they think, I'm getting something absolutely amazing. And Russian Adam mentioned that in reality, just like all the other ingredients, you could have extremely high quality rose oil, you could have extremely high quality Taif rose oil, you could have medium quality, you could have lower quality. So the highest quality is like the royal quality, right? And then you've got medium and the lower quality. It depends on the way that it's distilled and all that stuff. And with oud, it's very important because you could actually have $100 per gram Kinam oil, or you could have $10,000 per gram Kinam oil. But the brands just say Kinam oil, right? They don't say, hey, we use this particular method. We make sure the tree is at least 25 years old or whatever it is, right? 100 years old or wild or plantation or all kind of stuff. They're not mentioning that. They're not mentioning if it's sinking agarwood, if it's this, if it's that. They just put Kinam and it's like a buzzword for them to charge more, right? So with Zerjoff Gao, when I first smelled it initially, this came out a decade ago, by the way. So it came out the same year as the MFK that I'm wearing today. They both came out in 2012. And they both were part of that oud craze. So Tom Ford did a couple things when you talk about oud early on. He released this in 2002, which is M7. This was the first YSL's M7. This was the first designer to use the note of oud, if you will, in their fragrance. That's the story with this fragrance, okay? And he ended up getting into like an argument with YSL. They disagreed with the way that he was taking the brand. I love M7, by the way. I think it's one of the, I think it's a gem of a designer. And this is what the vintage bottle looked like. They ended up putting it in the square bottle and selling it again. So whenever he left YSL, he founded his own brand, right? And when he founded his own brand in 2007, he released Oud Wood. And oud became this, it caught like wildfire in the West because there's very few ingredients that come out that are new. There's very few ingredients that are revolutionary. There's very few new ingredients that perfumers can work with. Many of the stuff perfumers are working with, they've been working with for centuries sometimes, you know, jasmine and rose and patchouli and ambergris. And I mean, you know, King Charles used to like ambergris on his eggs and hundreds of years ago. And you know, it's not something, you don't always get the new material like oud. Now, oud has been used in the Middle Eastern culture for thousands of years, they say. But in Western culture, it's a new thing. So it caught like wildfire. But what these brands did is they kind of pulled an okie doke on people. They used the word oud, okay? But there's sometimes no oud actually in the formula. Or if there is, there's a drop of real oud, and there's loads of this cheap synthetic molecule that comes across as oud to people that don't know what oud smells like, right? And don't get me wrong, I still like some of these fragrances. I mean, look how much Oud Wood I used from Tom Ford. I almost killed this bottle. And today, on my own volition, I'm wearing Mason Francis Kirkjohn's oud, which is a very similar style oud. It's a synthetic Western. Now, there may be real oud, there may not. I don't want to get sued by the brand because I said there's no oud in here. But if there is, there may be a drop, or they're using the cheaper quality oud. So when you distill oud, Russian Adam, go watch my 2 Russian Adam interviews. It will take you some time because the first one is almost 2 hours. The second one is 4 hours long. But it's one of the best, he's one of the best encyclopedias for knowledge on fragrances, distilling ingredients, and really loving the art of perfumery and taking what he does very seriously, right? But in that 4-hour interview, one of the things that came out is he talked about how you distill oud and, you know, whether you distill it. There's so many variables is what he said. You know, you've got your receiver, you've got your boiler, you've got this, you've got that. It could be glass, it could be copper, it could be all kind of different metals that it's made out of, aluminum. Those all affect the way it smells and what level of heat you distill it on, right? So when you're distilling oud, he was mentioning if you distill at a lower temperature for a longer time, the same exact oud oil that you distill can smell completely different compared to a brand that went in there and said, we're going to push all of the oud out. It's low quality. We're going to push all of the oud oil out in 3 to 5 days, right? Whereas it may take him months to distill that exact same batch. And so me now, Ramsey, 10 years into this journey, when I smell Zerjoff Gao, instantly I'm of 2 minds because I say, okay, it does smell like there's real oud in here. It at least gives that impression that there's real oud with loads of saffron, by the way. This has even more saffron than the MFK. This is saffron and more saffron and oud is basically what I get. And some balsams. And there's Spanish saffron and Persian saffron. Now, I don't know what the 2 saffron differences smell like, but there are differences, and apparently there's Laotian oud in Xerjoff Gao, which is fine. But when you smell it, to the untrained nose, you'll say, wow, that's oud. Like if you've never smelled all these other ouds, if you've never smelled the Russian Adam Kinam, if you've never smelled There's a oud called Choco Barai, which was used in one of his compositions that's coming to me very soon. Can't wait to get that. And I'll do a video where I wear the oil on one hand and the fragrance on another and talk about it. But if you're new to the oud game and all you smelled before was Tom Ford Oud Wood or MFK's Oud or something like that, and you smell this Xerjoff Oud Stars Gao, you're going to go, wow, this is what real oud is, and you're going to buy a bottle instantly. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying it's a bad fragrance, but what I am saying is now that I'm at this point in my journey, when I smell this, I say, yes, this is real oud, but it's rubbery. So when you smell it, it smells very rubbery, and it almost smells like mustard seeds, okay? Like, it's so, the combination of the ultra heavy saffron with the rubbery oud, which is probably real in here. They probably are using real oud, but it smells like they used low quality oud and they pushed the oil out as fast as they can. Like they almost burned it. You know, they didn't do the slow distilling process that Russian Adam was talking about. They didn't take their time because they're a company looking for the most profits probably, or the company that they use to source the oud from, which is more likely. Xerjoff's probably not out there distilling their own oud, right? The company that they used probably gave them they probably went for one that didn't cost as much money because all they care about is saying there's real oud in here, right? They're not going for the for the months, you know, the weeks and months of distillation to make sure that, you know, that brings out the other aspects of the oud. I have some oud here that he sent me that smells like orris. It smells like iris butter. You know, I have some oud here that smells chocolatey. I have some oud here that smells floral. He sent me a decant of Ocularia Blossom, his newest fragrance. There's some floral facets to the oud and Ocularia Blossom, which I'll do a full review on that one day. I do have a a little container like this. This is not Ocularia Blossom, but like this that he sent me with Ocularia Blossom. So I'll do a review of that hopefully while you can still buy it on the website. But the oud here has this burnt rubber mustard smell. And I think that comes from the fact that either, you know, the distiller that distilled the oud for them used one of the lower quality ouds, or they just pushed the oil so fast to just maximize the profit and move on. You know, they didn't want to take the time. They didn't want to take the time to let the rest of the facets of the oud come out. And when you smell an Arise L'Adore perfume or Bortnikov or something like that, someone on those levels, when you're talking about their oud, you're talking about Oud Maximus by Bortnikov. You're talking Arise L'Adore by Russian Adam. And you smell the oud. You smell the complexity of the oud that they use. And you smell the oud in something like Zerjoff Gao. There's no comparison. I mean, to me, the oud in the Russian Adam perfume just completely blows it away. This is a mountaintop experience for oud lovers. You know, there's very few places that you can go without just going and buying the individual oud oil and putting them on your skin, which is a very expensive proposition. Sniffing pure oud oil is no joke. I mean, some of the stuff is extremely expensive. So, saying all of that, because again, the whole point of me doing this channel is I want to give you my honest and true opinion, all right? Saying all of that, everything I've said, I still like this, okay? Even though I know that this Zerjoff Gao, even though I know that it is probably cheaper quality oud, they push the oil out as fast as they can. It does have this burnt quality to it. You know, like they had the pressure or the temperature up too high on the distillation. It has this, you know, this burnt rubber, you know, tires. You know when you peel out, you ever been around someone who peeled out with their car and, you know, leaves the tire tracks and it's fresh and you can smell the rubber in the air? That's what this smells like. And as it dries, that burnt rubber turns into this mustard-like smell. Like it's heavy, it's burnt oud mustard. But even with that, I still like this. There's a part of me that still likes this. I mean, like I said, I still wear some of even the synthetic ouds. I still wear these. I still like them. It's just I'm at a point in my journey now that I know about Russian Adam and Bortnikov and all this stuff. Would I spend $250 on Zerjoff Gao? That's the question. Is would I buy a bottle of this? No. Do I like it? Yes, I absolutely like it. Even knowing everything I said, I still like it. There's this balsamic, resinous saffron-like feel with the oud that makes it feel very Middle Eastern. And even though it is challenging, I think this is a challenging oud, even though it's not as challenging as some of the real true ouds you might smell, the barnyard ouds, which I like. This is more rubbery, but it has some woody aspects too. There is some cedar, there's that Nagamatha oil, that cypriol oil, and there's a little bit of patchouli and amber, but it's mostly the saffron and the Laotian oud. But even knowing that, I still like it. So because I have to be fair to it, this is probably the best Xerjoff Oud I've ever smelled. Now, I've never smelled Alexandria or some of the other ones that people, hype up. I haven't smelled those because I'm not the biggest fan of Xerjoff. I wouldn't spend my money on this. I wouldn't be sniffing this if it wasn't for DL Qualia, if it wasn't for the kindness of you guys in the community. So, if somebody gave me a bottle of this, would I wear it? Yes, I would wear it. But would I spend my hard-earned money on this? No. I actually ended up getting a bottle of Russian Adam's fragrances for this, or less, actually, less than this. And even though the bottle's a little bit used, it's not completely full, I'd rather spend my money there. I mean, I'd rather spend it on a fragrance like Oud Zen or Chinese Oud or something like that. That is more where my head's at nowadays when we're talking about oud. Okay, and so it's a ingredient that I still love, even though someone left me a comment the other day saying real frag heads don't like Bortnikov anymore, Ramsey. I'm like, who are you? What do you mean real frag heads? You like whatever you like, dude. It's not a trend thing for me. I'm not saying I like oud because it's trendy, because it was super trendy a decade ago. Everyone needed an oud fragrance. Think about all the ouds that came out. This came out in 2007, and then it was just like a cascade. Everyone put out their own oud fragrance without fail. I mean, Creed put out an oud. MFK put out an oud. Xerjoff did a whole line on ouds. I mean, all the big expensive houses put out an oud. If you were anyone who was anyone, even the cheap houses, Roberto Cavalli put out an oud fragrance. YSL repackaged M7 into this. M7 Oud Absolute. I think they did this in 2011. I mean, anyone who was anyone had an oud fragrance. Dior did leather oud, and I like that fragrance too. I love leather oud. And so, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that, now that I know Russian Adam, I would never wear M7. I absolutely would wear this and love this. I would wear this and love it. I'm wearing MFK today and love it, but I'm just trying to kind of give my thought process, how I feel. What does Oud Stars by Xerjoff, what does Gao, what does it bring to my head when I sniff it? And that's my thoughts. Synthetic, not synthetic, rubbery, mustard seed, harsh, which most people will associate with oud. If you've never smelled oud, you're gonna go, wow, this is oud. But people don't realize that there's so many layers, even within the same type of oud, even within the same tree. So the same tree, you could have the $100 a gram oud, you could have the $10,000 gram oud from the same tree. depending on, you know, which part of the tree it was distilled from and all this stuff. And so that's the problem with, well, not really the problem. It might be a problem for a culture of people that just want everything fast. They just want, you know, nowadays people just want they want what they want it now, you know. And learning about the intricacies of a very complex ingredient is something that probably only the true oud heads or true frag heads or true addicts, you know, true fragrance addicts are going to take the time to do. So with all that being said, can I recommend Gao, Oud Stars Gao? You know, can I recommend you get your nose on this? Is it worth taking your time to sniff? Yes. Yes, it is. I think it is definitely worth a sniff, but I just would not buy a full bottle today based on, you know, my knowledge of oud, which has taken me, you know, it's taken a lot of time and information. If you want to kind of go through the crash course, watch the Russian Atom interviews. I'm telling you, they're probably the best thing I've ever put up on YouTube. That and the Liz Moore's interviews from Papillon. I very rarely tell you guys to like and subscribe and all that stuff, but I will tell you to go watch those interviews if you haven't done it. There's so much good information on there, and you'll learn so much. Don't be like the guy that just left me a comment when I was talking about MF. Yesterday I was talking about this as my scent of the day, Sealed to Gum. And I left it up there. This guy left me a comment saying, "Oh, you're such a shill for the brands. How much did MFK pay you to say that?" And I was like, "Hey, bozo, this is discontinued. You know that, right? They're not going to pay me to say something about a fragrance they're not selling anymore. Don't be an uneducated perfume consumer like that guy. Get your information, get your facts, you know, straight. And the best way to do that is to listen to the people like Russian Atom, like Liz Moore's, who are on the front lines, doing it, making their own brands. The fact that they're even willing to sit down with someone like me who just has a passion and a love for fragrance, I don't have hundreds of thousands of subscribers, tells me that their hearts are in the right place. They're doing it for the right reasons. And actually, both of them, their pricings are very fair. I mean, I know a couple $100 or $250 or $300 or whatever it is not cheap. But when you look at some of the pricings, I mean, that Roja we unboxed yesterday is a $3,000 bottle of perfume, right? When you get into some of these insane prices north of $300, $400, $500, and you kind of realize where the industry is going. I mean, Chanel has hiked their price every year for the past God knows how long, and they've done multiple price hikes now. They've done, like, you know, every 6 months they're starting to raise their prices. So some of these houses like Arise Ladore, Bortnikov, Papillon, you know, you just get so much for your money. You just get you get a lot of bang for your buck. You get a lot of value, and that's important to most people. Most people want, you know, they want to get a decent deal. They don't want to pay top dollar for something. But you have to kind of know what you have to hunt, what you want to hunt for, and you have to be patient, and you have to have the money ready to where if something pops up, you can make a decision right away. And so, yes, that's my thoughts on Xerjoff Oud Stars Gao. I mean, I know I've given this house a very hard time. I have not been kind to the House of Xerjoff. Like I said, if you want to chuckle, go watch my early impression on Symphonium, which I still think is shite. But this is good. You know, this is good. This is something that it does impress me. Like I said, I wouldn't buy a bottle, but it impresses me. So, Xerjoff, I have to give you your flowers where they're due. You deserve it here. You deserve the flowers for Gao. It's a good fragrance. And I'm pretty sure there is at least real oud in here. It feels like there's real oud. So that's my initial impression. Thank you everyone for watching, and hopefully I'll be back tomorrow with another video. Cheers, guys. Bye now.